Today I talk about destroying yourself to become somebody else. Welcome to episode number 41 of the Ian Luebbers journey. And this is going to be a little bit controversial, but it's something I believe very strongly. And I'll start by explaining a story from one of my mentors that describes a little bit where this came from. And it came to my attention because this mentor had an article being written about him. He was being interviewed, and they asked him a question along the lines of, "Well, should you really, change all of yourself in order to achieve success? Like, shouldn't you hold back a little bit? Shouldn't you respect where you came from? Things like that." And his answer was fascinating. His answer to me, his answer was no. In fact, in the West, as opposed to in Eastern cultures, we place a kind of weird sense of importance on this idea of a self, on this idea that you are somebody and it's important that you remain true to who you are, that you be yourself, that you respect your roots, things like that. And he said, what happens when you go on to achieve something that you didn't think you would be able to is you destroy the part of yourself that didn't think you would be able to, or that didn't define that as a part of yourself. And in reality, if you try to define yourself, it's always changing. And this is, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole because entire religions are built around this sort of idea. Buddhism, for example, talks about how it's really weird to talk about the self because you can't really define the self. It's a bunch of moving pieces that are constantly changing. And what this mentor said is, the question isn't who you are. The question is who you are becoming. And to be honest, the first time I heard this, I was like, that seems weird. That doesn't seem right. I feel like there's value to being yourself. But as I learned more and sort of analyzed my journey, my mindset actually started to shift a little bit. And I realized that whenever I made discontinuous leaps in my journey, for example, I met a mentor who taught me sales when I was growing my second business, and almost overnight I signed something like $30,000, $40,000 of business in like a week. And he helped me get better at sales that rapidly, and I was like, what? How is that possible? Like, clearly it wasn't this massive skill acquisition. It was something that needed to be tweaked in my mindset, in my identity. And I realized that what happened was I had actually subtly changed my identity to somebody of higher value, to somebody empowering the lives of others, and this in turn changed my selling process and style, and all this internal work shifted. And there's this natural hesitation that everybody has. I have it, everybody has it. When you do something new that is out of your sense of identity. A perfect example is a lot of introverts, certainly me in the past, will say things like to themselves, often to other people, they will say things like, I don't have that many friends, or I'm not that good at making friends, or I can't do small talk, or just this whole range of excuses, really, which I'll get into. And this happens in every field. This is just something that I'm particularly aware of because we don't define ourselves as being popular, or having a lot of friends, or being able to have large friend circles, when in reality, those are just made up. And yes, there's such a thing as introversion. That's not what I'm saying. But at the same time, we underestimate how malleable our identities are. And when we can change our identity, we can change our reality and our worldview and our sense of possibility. And I can honestly say that I feel like a completely different person. Something like 70%, some very high percentage different person than when I started out as an entrepreneur. Because I've continually pushed on the boundaries of my identity and tested them and flipped them and pushed past them. And it's been one of the most uncomfortable things I've ever done, but also one of the most empowering. And this isn't to say I don't honor where I come from or anything like that. In fact, I'm very proud of it, and it's part of my story. What it is about is being aware of that story, being aware of that identity, and recognizing that in order to achieve something that you want to achieve, you might have to rewrite the narrative of your life, and you might have to rewrite your identity. And that's one of the hardest things you can do, but it can also be one of the most valuable. So the final note I'll end on is a tactical one, because this mentor recommends a very radical approach to this. And I've tried this at a few points and found it really valuable for helping me rewrite my identity into the person who I want to become. And it's this. It's taking something that you consider a core part of your identity and changing it. For example, starting small, you can get a completely different haircut. You can change the way you dress. You can change the music that you listen to. You can change your diet. You can change the friends that you hang out with, and you can go deeper and deeper. One thing, to give more examples, at one point I started speaking, the voice inside your head that, not like a psychotic voice, don't think that, but the voice, just your natural thoughts. I changed that to Spanish at one point, and I just only allowed myself to think internally in Spanish, and it massively changed my identity. It was weird. I didn't understand why at the time, but it's for this reason. I was changing something very, very central to my operating system, and it helped me rewrite my sense of self in a certain valuable way. And so if you're poised, and this isn't, if you're content, this isn't for you. I'm not saying that you should go out and change your identity, but if there's a goal that you want to achieve and you feel stuck, you feel like it's just outside of your reach, then consider changing your identity. Finding something deep within yourself that you can switch to remind yourself that your identity is a construct that can be recreated to serve your goals, as opposed to keeping you from them. Like my mentor said, the question is not who you are. The question is who you are becoming. Would love to hear about any instances where you felt your sense of identity shift dramatically in a positive way. And we'll talk tomorrow.